When I think of animated feature films, I think that The Jungle Book is probably the most Disney film of all. Walt Disney loved fun, gags, and humor. And The Jungle Book epitomizes all of that. There's no film that says Disney more than The Jungle Book. I'm Floyd Norman, and I had the opportunity to work with Walt Disney on The Jungle Book back in 1966. And this was a very special time because The Jungle Book was having some problems, even though it had one of the finest storymen of all. And I'm speaking of the great Bill Peet, who was adapting Kipling for the screen. And Bill was doing what I considered a marvelous job, but Walt Disney felt differently. He didn't like the story. He felt that the film was looking dark and murky. He even made a reference that The Jungle Book reminded him of Batman. Can you imagine that? The Dark Knight? Who even thought that Walt Disney even knew what Batman was? But anyway, we were called in to do a total rewrite on The Jungle Book, and it was a very special year. Now imagine, I was delighted just to be working at the Walt Disney Studio. Can you imagine what it was like to be working for Walt Disney, with Walt Disney, on what would be the old maestro's final film? It was a very special time. And for a kid like me, imagine being in the same room with Walt Disney for a number of meetings throughout 1966. It was a masterclass in Disney storytelling. And I consider myself so lucky to have been there at that time. Now keep in mind, the 9 old men, most of Walt's top animators, worked on The Jungle Book. And these were guys who had had a stellar career and had nothing left to prove. We already knew they were great. I think they already knew they were great. So that meant they just had a ball. They had a fun time creating some of the funniest and finest animation ever. And that's what makes The Jungle Book so special. Walt even convinced background artist Al Dempster to come out of retirement. Al had become, he wanted to grow apples. He had an apple orchard. And Walt Disney had to convince Dempster to come out of retirement and create the backgrounds for The Jungle Book. So again, it was a very special time, and I look back on 1966, those months that I was able to spend with Walt Disney, to work with him, to learn from him, and make a very special motion picture. If you've seen The Jungle Book, and you probably have, you probably still enjoy it today. The film is ageless, it's timeless, and it is a wonderful Walt Disney animated motion picture.